with you and me. It's like a veil is lifted from my eyes, and I can see again. And gratefully, I see in you the ultimate surprise that one could have. Coming to me on the wings of a dream. Hey, whoa, given to us 'cause we dared to dream that it was possible, hoping to hold the most precious thing. We opened our hands, you and me.
Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio. Tom and Ramon. Wow, have we got an amazing show lined up for you guys today. Man, Ramon, there's some interesting stuff going on in the world, and I'd like to bring up one little thing real quick before we get rolling with our guests today. There's another one of those magnetic motors out. This one's by a guy by the name of, and I'm probably not going to pronounce him right, but Wasif Calhoun. He's on December 14th, 2013. This Pakistani inventor, Wasif Calhoun, posted a video showing rotation and output through a generator that he said was 3.5 kilowatts. It powered 2 heating elements as well as a fan and a bunch of light bulbs. It will be available in the market shortly for personal, industrial, and public use to produce electrical and mechanical energy. Now, in his video, he put out a challenge to engineers. He's actually looking for, sounds like he's looking for some engineers, some electrical engineers and mechanical engineers to step up to the plate and see what kind of addition or contribution they can make to getting this thing developed and out to market. I've looked into this quite deeply, and I've actually, here a year or so ago, I actually tried to start developing this sort of system myself. I can see it in my mind how this works, and this guy's definitely put it together, and it's just amazing. I think we're getting close, Ramon, to that free energy, quote unquote.
Yeah, I think we are getting pretty close to that free energy thing. You know, there's some quite impressive things on there that I found to myself, and I have to give thanks to Off the Grid and also Ed Camara, who always posting some amazing stuff. And one of the things I found is now as soon as we can get our hands on this, we can save our shows for like millions of years. This Superman memory crystal 5D nano glass to preserve data for millions of years. And it was really impressive when I saw this. It looks like almost like a contact lens, bigger. Let's see. A researcher group in Britain has recorded data into a crystal of nanostructured glass. This future storage with particularly unlimited lifetime and capacity exceeding Blu-rays by 2,800 times might have civilization data for aliens if humankind is gone. So that's quite impressive. Another one, I'm going to try to blow through these really quickly so we can get to our guests. Wilson Solar Grill for outdoor cooking. A group of MIT students have been working on a solar grill that uses a fresh lens and solar energy to melt down a container of lithium nitrate, which is like a battery storing thermal energy for 25 hours. The heat created at the temperature above 450 degrees Fahrenheit is used for convection cooking outdoors. And you see some African women, I guess they're testing this out in that region. You can look at the news there deeper. And last one I saved was how to build a hydroelectric generator. And for those of you who have streams nearby you or natural running waters, you can try this one. So it's basically of one of those paint buckets, 5 gallons, and you hook it up and all the information's there. You can find that in the news. Just scroll all the way down. And Tom, take it away.
Oh, well, okay. Well, let's go ahead and get right into our show today. We have with us Perry Mills and Kelly Lachey. We have them back again to the Hundredth Monkey Radio. Both of them have been doing some tremendous work. They work deeply within the shamanic arts, and they're bringing some amazing stuff to the table now. And you guys will have to go back and listen to some of the other interviews we've done with both of them throughout the last couple of years. And just to cut things short and get right into the meat and potatoes, I'm going to let you guys do the research on their bios and such. And welcome these guys back to the 100th Monkey Radio. Welcome, Kelly and Perry.
Hi, good to be back with you guys.
It's great to hear your voices.
Oh, so you guys just put out a couple of papers, and going over these myself, I saw within them some absolutely very, very poignant points that are really for our time right now in history and what we have looking forward towards. The trying to rebalance the society, rebalance humanity, rebalance ourselves. There's some things that we really have to look at. And I guess I just let you guys take it away. The two papers are titled Soul Sovereignty and Sacred Love, and Our Road to Sovereignty. And so, Perry or Kelly, either one of you want to jump in and start letting us know what you got going on here?
Well, I'd like to preface with the content of my article in particular is very disturbing because I'm revealing what's going on to the feminine on the planet. And it's harsh information, and it's X-rated as well. The rest of this talk will be X-rated, but it's not to offend anyone. It's to bring our awareness to the table. This is part of our awakening, is to be aware of what's really going on around the world, and to take responsibility to change our cultures through our belief system and the way we treat one another. So I'm just kind of, I guess, preparing people that this will be graphic. But it's for our awakening, and it's worth it because we are all going to gain from this awareness.
I think it's I-rated as intelligent rated. Personally, I mean, we have to understand this stuff, and we have to know what's happened to be able to move forward, right?
Yes.
So go ahead. Let's go ahead and dig into that, Kelly. Our history. There's been a tremendous. There's been a lot of injustice from that third dimensional perspective. There's been a tremendous amount of injustice on what's happened on this planet, and it's thrown us way off kilter as far as being able to balance ourselves. Mm-hmm. So you want to just go ahead and let's get into the X-rated, shall we?
Okay. Well, first of all, in my article, what I did last year, my project last year was to study each continent, as many continents as I could study, and find out the sexual practices within each continent and each culture. And it was devastating, really. The common theme is that the feminine has been squelched on the planet. And so if you take a look at like the Muslim religion in Africa, there are many more women that have been circumcised than we realize. It's not just a small number. It's a huge percentage of the population. So and it's not just circumcision. They're not just removing the clitoris and the labia, but they're sewing up the vagina, the opening of the vagina, so that they're raped when they're first penetrated, so that the rape is worse.
Wow, that would have to have some absolutely devastating psychological effects on the women.
Absolutely, and the women are doing it to their own daughters.
Well, and is this all religious based, or is it just cultural based, or is it tradition? Is this what they always have done?
Yeah, in Africa, it's cultural based. It's just with the tribal way. And in the Muslim religion, it's just the religion, and the Sharia law is even worse. So so the common theme, as I looked all over the place, and the jungle being taken down, and there's so many stories that you have to. I'm referring people to take a look at the article, because what's going on in Japan is disturbing, and
Yes.
Thailand, and the sex trade, and I'm losing the word. I mean, because a lot of people think that prostitution is just by choice, but for the main part, it's not. It's slavery, and porn as well. There's a lot of slavery within porn. So the common theme here is that who's behind all of this? Why is the feminine being taken down on the planet? You see, this is what 2012 is all about, and it's turned now, and now she's in charge. And so our role now is to restore that imbalance, and to start respecting the feminine and forgive the masculine, and the masculine and the feminine. We need to learn how to get along. And because this is how it affects us, that this affects each and every one of us, because you can see it in the clients that I work with, that people aren't getting along.
So real quick, I want to make sure we have a full understanding of what you're talking about with the masculine and the feminine. I'm kind of perceiving what you're explaining here as more along the feminine side of things versus the divine feminine side of things. Am I correct here?
Well, the feminine is divine, and the masculine is divine as well. But the divine has been taken out of the feminine and masculine as well. And we can see this in our relationships. Couples, I do a lot of couples work, and our relationships are all messed up. And who is behind this? And this is the research that we've done. And, we did an interview with George Gavasilis on the Anunnaki. If anyone's interested in hearing that, the archives are there, that explain who's operating this behind the curtain. And the names are the Marduk and the Draconian Queen. So it's actually the Draconian Queen that's in charge of squelching the feminine.
That's actually not surprising at all. But before we get into the whole Draconian Queen, because I would really like to get deep into that. Stepping back, what's one of the reasons why somebody would sew a woman up so it can be harsher? Is that for the reason of a complete disempowerment, so they're always subservient kind of thing?
Yes, so they can feed off of our misery. Energetically, that's what's happening.
So we're stepping this up not just to what we're seeing as the physical manifestation here in 3D, but there's also that other element of these entities that are actually using these things as sustenance, or
yes.
Yeah, one of the coming back to Japan, because you mentioned Japan, and you must have heard me go, oh yes, because I see it every day. And I'll give you an example. We were talking in class about the last century's top icons and stuff like that, whether negative or positive, and there were some women in there. So of course, I don't see any Japanese women, and I'm just like, who would you put as a Japanese woman icon? Because I don't know any personally. And the only one they mentioned was Yoko Ono, and I said, well, she never did anything but sleep with John Lennon. Did you have something to say, Kelly?
Well, that was a little giggle.
Oh, okay. So I was just like, yeah, who, and they couldn't mention anybody, and I was just amazed how, and then of course the excuses came in, like, and these are all women I'm talking to. And the excuses came in all because, you know, here in Japan is such a disempowerment of women. And I was like, well, how come none of you guys say anything or do anything about it? Especially like in the, there was a huge article written by a foreigner here in English where you will have these cases. So when a foreigner, for example, rapes a woman here, he gets the book thrown at him, which is, you know, from my opinion, I think that's the right thing. But when a Japanese does it, it's such an embarrassment for the women that most of them end up dropping it. There was even a case where the girl goes to the police and the police made her act it out and show them exactly what he did. So of course she ended up dropping the case. So that's a common theme here where, you know, these kind of things happen to women. And I find here, like, you know, you go to countries like Pakistan and there's a disempowerment of women, but then you have like that 16-year-old girl who stands up for women's right and gets shot in the head and then gets even stronger. You know, not only she survives it, but then she gets stronger. Where here it's like, it's nowhere near as brutal, but on a different level, it's way more brutal. On a, what can I call it? On an internal level. Yeah, psychological. Exactly.
Yes, and it shows up in the relationships. The population of Japan is decreasing, and the Japan's diapers are increasing. So the population is dying because people don't want to have relationships with each other. That is so bizarre. They're not looking for love anymore. They gave up on love from the study that I did. And again, that's in my article. And it's quite disturbing what they do. Instead of having relationships with each other, women pay big money to have a man sit down and just talk to her. And the men pay to snuggle, but they don't want to do it in a relationship.
That's called, that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's called host and hostess clubs.
Yeah.
And actually, they exist in New York for the Japanese what they call salarymen, and there they call piano bars. But yeah, that's a huge business here. It's very strange, but you know, the population is decreasing, but there is a population that is increasing, and that's the amount of mixed children. For example, a lot of my friends, you know, they have Japanese wives or Japanese husbands, and they have, you know, 2, 3, 4 kids. And I see that, you know, in the school system, I see those kids increasing and the other kids decreasing. So it's a very, very weird thing. But not to go off subject too much, back to what do you think is the key thing that you find that, for example, like going back to Japan, in a society like Japan where the women are not necessarily being beaten, not that it doesn't happen, but unlike in other countries where it's more brutal, but yet the effects of it are, I think, almost harsher. They stay more subservient. Where in a case like Pakistan or some of these Muslim countries where the women actually risk death and still do their part.
It's so extreme. You know, I just found out what Sharia law is, and Americans don't know what the Muslim religion is all about because we're not educated for a reason. But it's pretty disturbing what they allow there. Because it's not just that they have to cover their body, but it's legal for husbands to rape their wives. It's legal.
Actually, that's legal in a lot of countries too. I know for a time it was legal in Dominican Republic and some Latin American countries where, because you're married, so that's part of the service that she has to provide, and if she doesn't want to give it, then he can force it. They're married, so it's his right anytime.
Yes. And I want to bring it back to why we're talking about this as well, because Women, with this movement, with the feminine rising and restoring this imbalance, women want to know and men want to know, what can we do about it? And that's what we'd really like to get into as well, because everyone wants to participate, and because this is what the ascension is all about. This is what the tipping point is all about. And when everyone starts restoring the balance within of their masculine and feminine, and restoring the relationship with our masculines and feminines, then we're participating and creating the ascension together.
So this is taking us back. I know you guys write about sovereignty, soul sovereignty, quite a bit in these articles, and I'm assuming that this is what this is leading towards.
Well, it's not just soul sovereignty. It is about soul sovereignty, and as soul, we're both masculine and feminine. We may be incarnated in one gender or another, but even as a man, I hold a lot of feminine qualities or virtues inside of me, and I know all women hold certain amounts of masculine in some perfect little balance, and every one of us is a little different on what that balance is. So the sovereignty issue, even though it breaks on the shores of sexism and oppression of the feminine, or the oppression of the patriarchy, even though it falls along those lines, what we know, and I think all of our listeners know, is that everyone is victims here. It's hard to see the patriarchy as victims because they're really scared little boys. And so most people just see their horrendous deeds and they think that these are people of power, but we know otherwise because everyone dies alone. And so a large part of what we try to do in presenting this material is really bring a compassionate view on both sides of the issue, but also on getting people out of their denial, getting them out of their complicity to perpetuating the system, to not naming it, to not doing something, taking responsibility for their part of the complicity. And so we're not trying to be pointing fingers, because we all are these people. We are. It's not someone else. You know, the enemy is within, and also our redemption is within. So this discussion is first about pulling the veil back to see how the inner dynamics of this works. And you can't pull the veil back without talking about all the influences that control us and control our thoughts and control sexuality on the planet through religion and culture and society and ritual and practice. And dark and light are both somehow complicit in this, and we have to talk about what's dark, what's the dark mask, what's behind the darkness behind the light workers, and what's the light behind the dark workers. Because if we don't start owning all parts of this and see how we contribute and go along and collude, if we don't open up ourselves to accepting and in a sense redeeming or forgiving those opposites that live inside of us, then nothing will change. Then it'll just be this endless battle back and forth. I'm a winner today, you're a winner tomorrow. And we don't care about winners. We want everyone to be winners. We want love to be the prize, and we want everybody to know that they are divine.
So what is that light within the dark?
Okay, if I can back up just a little bit, because people don't realize that the culture that we're born in controls our thoughts and feelings, and that is not sovereignty. You know how we identify with our nationality and our culture as if that's our personality, and that's not even related to your soul. So sovereignty here that we're talking about, and this is the light that we're talking about, is the sovereignty of the soul, that we have to claim ourselves through healing and breaking free from the control forms of our culture. Because media, movies, porn, celebrities, the mainstream news, all these limitations, basically, these are basically designed to limit us from our freedom. And then it seeps right into our relationships and the way we think and feel and live our lives. And, you know, this is insatiable existence here.
You know, there's so many things that, you know, situations that we run into in this world where we react. We have this initial reaction that is, I've come to know them as the programmed reactions from society myself. But we do react immediately to whatever the situations happen to be. What is it? How do we walk in this world with those reactions? How do we? The question is, how do we recognize when the reaction is something that is programmed and something versus something that is coming from our true core?
Such a great question.
Yeah, it's a real good question, and I think we get the answers wrong for a while, but we learn by just taking some bumps. Kelly and I both are strongly devoted to an intuitive approach, and that intuitive approach recognizes and honors that each of us as a sovereign soul are connected with the truth, and that we don't have to go through a third party ever. But because we're so indoctrinated by our cultural upbringings and our religious thinkings and our own beliefs that just seep in from all types of cultural contexts, because we're all so indoctrinated, we often doubt whether we really do have a sense of what the truth is. Discernment is a word bandied about a lot in these talks, and we are all trying our best to know what good discernment is. So we usually boil it down to people understanding and getting a better connection with their intuitive side, their intuitive connection to source. And that intuitive connection is so unused by most people because it's been overlaid by so many cultural and religious beliefs that a lot of them have abandoned their own connection and have basically deferred to the third parties of religion or pundits or even the New Age, which is a whole other discussion. But by deferring over to someone else to know what truth is, we've all kind of lost our edge. So when it comes to knowing whether your discernment is on the money or not, I always urge, and Kelly as well does, urge people to just be quiet with themselves and listen more deeply into those whispers. Now, you're not gonna know for sure whether what you're getting is yours or whether it's echoes from your indoctrination at first. And a lot of people are afraid that they're being influenced by other forces outside of themselves, like entities or ETs or whatever. All that may or may not be true in the moment. But what is most important is that people develop this relationship with their own access to truth through their intuitions and through their quiet, sacred selves.
And you guys have some excellent tools through the liquid mirror work for recognizing this within self, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And I'd also like to bring up that we are not victims of this. We chose this together. We wanted to experience this project of separation, the Luciferian experiment, and we all chose to participate in this together. So so our souls could become strengthened from what it feels like to be separated from Source. And so we all chose this. We can't think of it as we're victims of it. Everyone gains. Even the dark ones are going to gain from this experience. This is a learning experience for all of us. And it's hard to perceive that from this point of view in 3D. But once we've accomplished this and we look back on this, we're going to see what we gained out of it.
A question for you here, Kelly. How do you come to that understanding? I mean, how do you come to the understanding that this is definitely something that we've all put ourselves in for? You know, we've all agreed to come here and experience these this distasteful planet, so to say. Where's this come from?
I have access to the memory of who I was before I incarnated here.
Wow. I want some of that myself. And I think we all have certain, at least limited, access to those things that we've touched through our practices, through our meditations, and through our soul seeking, so to say. Okay, so Can we go back into that the light out of the darkness? I mean, I'm
Yeah. Okay. So right now the battle I put that in quotes battle because it's really a discovery as well as a battle is for soul sovereignty and a sacred love. That's kind of where this all comes together for us. I think that most people might argue that there's a lot of fighting has to happen first. And what we're trying to do is to get people out of conflict within their own soulful selves. Because by getting out of conflict without pointing fingers and placing blame elsewhere, if they can stop placing that blame outside of themselves, they gain power over those things. As long as we think we are victims, we're powerless. As long as we think that we aren't dark, that we don't have some part of us that relates strongly to what the dark is, if we don't see that, then we perpetuate this cycle of battle between the two polar opposites. So when you're talking about sacred love, you're talking about everybody on the planet is all divine. They're all expressions of God. If you see some of them as being unworthy or reprehensible, in a way you're feeling a betrayal by God itself. So this is an untenable position for any soul that's trying to seek true peace and happiness and creative freedom. They cannot indulge that kind of a viewpoint. And so the biggest battle that any of us will ever fight will be in stopping the battle within. And in order to do that, we have to embrace the innocence of all sides of that duality, and that takes a very big soul, big shoes to fill. We all struggle and stumble doing this, but it has to be done if there's ever going to be the freedom that everyone wants, and if ever there's going to be true peace and soul sovereignty.
You know, from playing the devil's advocate thing, from what we have as society is termed as evil, say we have one individual, we'll point one individual out, and we've seen him as, I'll pick Hitler, for instance. Mm-hmm. Now, he was seen as, a very evil person. But from his perspective, I just can't, it's inconceivable to me that any being would not be doing what they feel is the best and highest good for themselves. So from his perspective, I kind of see that he would be doing what he felt was right.
Agreed. That is the big catch, Tom. I'm so glad you brought it up that way, because everyone has this assumption that carriers of really dark, the ones that most people never hear about, the deeds that are so reprehensible they make your stomach turn. The fact is that they are ideologically sound in their own sanity because their belief system is so entrenched and perfectly indoctrinated to support their position. So even with jihadists, for instance, what makes a person strap a bomb to themselves and blow themselves up and a bunch of other people? This is not insanity. It's a tremendously strong sense of purpose and belief to life and death levels. I'm not saying that I agree with that as a mode of getting things accomplished, as much as I'm trying to point that people really don't understand the dark. On the right side of everything, on the light side of everything, they don't understand the dark. And it's because they don't understand, and it's because the dark don't understand the light in their truth, that these kinds of interesting divisions and reprehensible actions occur. So I guess all I'm saying here is that there are psychoses that drive people to do horrendous things, but there's also probably the strongest force of chaos on the planet is ideology.
Therein lies the rub.
I think also, like in the jihadist case, and of course I'm not making an excuse for it, but in some of their cases, actually in a lot of their cases, their whole family, for example, like in Iraq, this is very popular, where their whole family was wiped out by an American missile. So when you're left like that, it's kind of easy if someone says, "Hey, why don't you take vengeance against the evil ones and strap a bomb?" I think it becomes a much easier thing that any sane person would probably just go and do it. Whether you believe in that kind of stuff or not.
Mm-hmm.
When you're put in such a horrifying situation where your whole family has been wiped out by this army that's invading your country.
And even in ethnic fighting, it's the same dynamic, Ramon.
Yeah.
It's the same dynamic. I think every one of us has to relate to the sanity of that vengeful response on one level of being. Kelly and I know, though, that those kinds of indulgences don't really further the cause of this coming together in what we would call sacred love. And that's why the first, as Kelly brings up in her article, one of the first things is kind of yank people's heads out of the sand compassionately, but a little bit forcefully, just so that people don't continue to indulge the indoctrination and the denial. But it's not to leave them there naked above the sand and suffer the guilt of what they are or what their cultures do or what humans do. It's really just an attempt to bring the sobering and truth about our complicity in the suffering on the planet and not contribute further to it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and there's another piece to add to this before we move on to the tools. The beings in 4D that are behind this mess, I was asking Source about this. It's like, what's going to be their process? When this project is complete, what's going to happen to them? And Source said that they're angels in training.
Angels in training, and we're talking about the beings that were, from our perception, are the dark beings, correct?
Yes.
Angels in training.
Yes.
I've heard that, and I'm trying to remember who was telling a story where they were like being attacked by a really dark being, and they just kept feeding that dark being love and trying to bring it through, and finally, when the being accepted to go into the light, it became like an angel type. Do you remember that story, Tom?
Vaguely, Ramon.
Love it.
I remember the young guy lives in California. I can't remember his name. We interviewed him, but anyway, yeah, I've heard that before, definitely, and it makes a lot of sense in my own dealings, with what I've noticed, whether we're talking about human beings or even those astral beings or whatever label you want to give those non-corporeal beings, is that it's a fear-driven society on both sides, meaning that, for example, I remember I was doing like a quick clearing in my house, and I heard in my head, like, and I told you this story, Tom, I heard in my head, I don't want to go into the light, and there was so much fear attached to it.
Wow.
So it's such a fear reality, I guess is the best wording for it.
Geez, well, we might want to take a little tour of energetics, interdimensional here. When we talk about dark beings, when we talk about fourth dimensional beings and influences, entities, there's a lot of talk of demons when you're talking about possessions and the illuminati practices in order to allow demons to take over incarnate human souls. These are dark and harsh realities that really are and do happen. But at the same time, what we have to understand, and this is part of our expose, this is part of rending the veil from the big charade of this place, is that the whole idea of domination or oppression, and we started out this talk talking about how the feminine has been oppressed and dominated on the planet, and what that suggests to us what that really is about in our estimation has to do with basically just control of the energy of consciousness of the planet, the energy of the humans and the souls that are encased within the incarnations on the planet. And so in order to be able to feed off of that control, so you could say, well, what is that food source really? And if we just looked at it as like just energy, like when we feel the best is when we have the most energy, which is really spirit coursing through us. You know, when we wake up in the morning and we don't have any worries sapping our goodwill, all of a sudden the world looks like a different place to us. We go out there with much enthusiasm and creativity, lots of love to give, generosity flows easily, we have plenty to give. This is energy. Now, when you have a planet that's being controlled by a faction of 4D entities, what they're after is that energy. And what they can't get that energy if the individual souls, the sovereign souls, they can't get the energy from them if those souls are self-sourced. So what they have to do, in a sense, is they have to oppress those souls in different ways and make them dependent on the structures of control. Those souls never awaken to their access to their own connection to source, their own energy. They're basically subservient and disabled. So the whole idea of oppressing the feminine was really about oppressing the balances of sovereign souls, masculine and feminine. It was about stopping love, because love generates energy that the oppressors can't control. It basically raises the frequency of the soul to where it can't be controlled. So in order to keep those souls forever getting to that frequency rate through love, through the balancing of the masculine and feminine energies, in order to keep them from doing that, they oppress that, because they know if they can't, those souls will go rogue, they will be their own self-creators, and they will basically cast them off like parasites. So they can't afford that. And that's why we're out here now just asking and urging people to gain their access and their sovereignty so that they have access to the true power of love.
So I guess one thing that pops into my mind is I'm looking at the number of people on this planet, and what I am perceiving as a very small sliver of that number who are actually doing this work, who are actually doing any self-work, any inner work on themselves, as far as, trying to understand who and what we are and what the hell's going on here. I guess the question I have is, bottom line, is this a numbers game for all of humanity and the group that we have here currently, or is this like an individual cherry picking type contest where we only those who are actually doing this work have a chance?
This is a frequency game. So the numbers matter not. It could be one or two people practicing sacred love all of a sudden to tilt the, to do the tipping point. And so that's what Perry and I are going to be doing, is teaching people how to practice sacred love and ceremony, so that people have a place to use their intention to create the life that they want, and to create the love that they want in their lives, because everyone's parched from intimacy for a reason. And that we believe that intimacy is synonymous with sovereignty.
Beautiful. I love that. Okay, well, we've talked about the now I think I understand the light within the dark now. Let's go to the other side of that coin, and can we look at the dark that's within the light?
That's a fascinating subject. And, this is the one you will not hear anybody talking about in the New Age, and that's why we had to do it. The fact is that the reason why, everyone's pretty familiar with this idea of duality, and we all bandy it about in the New Age circles. It's talked about as if everyone is really on the same page. But what no one is really talking about is that righteous, far-right polarity righteousness contributes to the conundrum of things not changing on this planet. And I say that because what everybody needs to do is own their entire selves. The whole God betrayal thing that we refer to occasionally, this is big. God betrayal is real, and it lives in everybody. And they don't want to admit it. They could be devout Catholics or Christians or Buddhists or whatever. But the God betrayal lives in people every time they look at atrocities in the world and they feel powerless to it, and they wonder, what kind of God is it? So when we talk about the light owning its dark, we're talking about coming to terms with the God that create, the God and its agents or agency that created duality in the first place. So everyone's on paths of righteousness in religion, all these what we call ascent paths. They're all stumping on righteousness over dark. It's love over power, right? But if they don't know the balance between love and power and have both of those virtues living in themselves, they haven't forgiven their own dark. And that is a long and arduous untanglement that has to happen for everyone who is purportedly standing on the right side of the duality, pointing fingers at the dark side in judgment. So if every individual doesn't somehow find the innocence, finds the eyes of God that will forgive it all, then they're going to perpetuate the fight. And we're here to urge those that are on the light side to stand down from their arrogance and own their darkness and see the innocence in the dark. It can only be redeemed if they own it on some deeper level. If they can forgive it, that means they're close enough to knowing it in themselves, and they are now, upon knowing that, in a position to actually forgive it and balance this equation within themselves, and then that'll show up in the world outside.
Well said. As a being here on this planet trying to understand what the hell's going on, I look at both sides of that coin. I'm looking at the darkness out there, and I look at at what we're seeing as the light side of things. Those teachers and lecturers and authors and such that are out there trying to share their words or spread their word. And from my personal experience, I've seen some that are on the quote unquote light side. That there's an undercurrent there that isn't quite as integral as they try to pull off. And that I'm seeing as actually one of the biggest problems in this field right now is that there are people out there, posing as one thing but leading people off in other directions. I guess. I don't know where the question is out of this, but I guess I want to know where and how do we discern that stuff? How do we winnow that stuff out? And I mean, because I see teachers and mentors and et cetera, can be very valuable in a person's path in learning how to deal with these things and learning how to recognize these things. But there's so much distraction and so much deception on both sides of the coin. It's just a bear to try to really figure out what to listen to, what to look at.
Yes, it's highly critical because and I'm talking to in my sessions to a lot of people that are being taken down by all the crap on the internet. You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
There's so many dark, fear-based messages out there that have people paranoid about entities and aliens, and this is creating more paranoia than it is help. And so I'm suggesting that people stop looking at it and replace it with something else.
That's some awesome advice right there. I mean, I see these people that I know that they'll dive into one of these subjects and they'll just go. I mean, it's just like balls to the walls. That's all they can focus on. They'll spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours in front of the computer, listening to lectures, watching videos, you know, reading articles, et cetera, all into this fear stuff. And it's like, dude, pull the plug.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we've all become so addicted to the internet, and for good reasons as well. I mean, the fact is that we have access to each other because of the internet.
Right.
You guys and us would never have known each other if it wasn't for the internet. So it's always good news, bad news, as Ken Wilber used to say.
Yeah.
I wanted to say also that we're just coming back to soul sovereignty. The fact is, as we understand it and know it, Kelly and I, is that all creation, as agents of the prime creator, ultimate creator, we are all that. So this creation is happening through us, each as individuals, not as a group. First, as individuals, we're like a perfect, unique expression of that creative principle, reaching out into whatever space and time that we're in as agents of this creator. It lives through us and in us, and it receives through us, and our receiving is its receiving. This is all very intimate. So as a sovereign soul, you are in the control seat of your life. You're in the control of what information comes in, what information goes out. You're in control of what you believe in. You're in control through your discernment about who you think your teachers need to be, or whether you need any teachers at all. You're in control only to the degree that you're sovereign. But to be sovereign, you have to lose all the lies. To lose the lies, you have to know what the lies are. And that's where all the discernment must come in. So we look at this internet, which has a vast amount of information, a lot of people saying a lot of things, and we're picking through it, trying to find a reflection of this sense of our sovereign selves that responds to us emotionally. So where I'm leading with this is back to the fear porn that is out there and all the paranoia that's produced by whistleblowing and all of these things. I do not disagree with the whistleblowers, and I don't think anyone in their right mind would disagree with the idea of exposing lies and oppression and deception, etc. But I think what we have to discern as sovereign souls is where we draw the line between what is good medicine to be taking in, and when do we say it's enough of that medicine, it's time for me to stand in my creatorship and be a part of the bringing of, I guess you could call it solutions to the so-called, quote, problems, but also to bring the virtues of God or the virtues of love into life, to manifest it. So what I'm suggesting here, bottom line, because I know I've gone long here, is that at some point you have to say, okay, I agree that these things happen. I agree in the dark, that I understand the dark practices, the oppressions, the influences from without, whether they be off planet or off dimension, or on planet just through power-mongering people. I agree that I see this now. At that point, you can decide whether you need to continue to see it and continue to ruminate about it and continue to recycle that information through your psychology to the point to where you're not really adding to a solution at all. At which point, I think it's better that we get people familiar with the idea of their own magical capabilities as sovereign souls to create the life that they want, to create the peace or the love or the harmony or the inspiration that they require and that this world requires. That becomes the discussion next, and that's what Kelly and I really are trying to draw. We're not telling people to stick their heads back in the sand and be unaware, and they're blissfully unaware of the dark aspects. What we're asking is for, I guess you could say, a balanced awareness of where it goes in the Luciferian experiment, where it goes in its extreme, just so that you know the whole range of it. Once you know the range of it, you have to make the decision. I'm asking myself to make the decision to say, okay, is this helping or is it not? At one point, do we magically get involved in creating the life that we want as empowered sovereign souls? And what tools are available for me to do that?
Very good.
Yeah.
And Ramon, you have something?
Yeah, I was gonna say one of the things I've noticed is, especially in my own experience and from listening from a lot of people's story, is kind of the same. When you start first looking into these kind of things, it's kind of the easiest way to go into the whistleblower and the very negative thing. But then, for example, with me is I know I hit a new plateau when I'm like, I'm bored of this. This is boring now because we're going in circles and I don't see, and then move on to the next level of information and finding out and looking into different aspects.
What I kind of do with that is, I pay attention to what's going on out in the world, and I've made myself aware of a lot of these different influences and programming and that sort of thing that's out there. But then what I do is I'll take it and I boil it down for myself and say, okay, what's within my sphere of influence to be able to affect? If this is something that at least right now, when I look out, I have no direct ability to have any influence on changing that or doing anything with that, then my awareness is awareness of that is all that I can do with that. So then I'll do that sphere of influence thing, and then it centers it back in within myself, and I'm able to, from that place, do what really matters, work on what really matters for myself. So anyways, I think this is probably a good a place as any to wrap up this first hour, and in the second hour we'll dive into the tools.
Can I add one thing? Do we have a little bit of time?
Certainly.
Okay. I'd like to just bring up a couple of things. One is that Andrew Bart says people should really take a look at his material. He's a galactic historian. He's doing amazing work. And Lance White wrote the manuscript of a 6-hour eight-hour interview that is just amazing information about the true history of our Earth. And Lance did such a fabulous job of transcribing those interviews. And the other one is the Rise Project that George and Sienna and a few other people have created that we're doing together so that people can tune into the tools that we're offering in a tribal way online. It's this new technology that we're using so that people can find community that are, people that are interested in this information and doing their work together in workshops live with each other from across the world. It's an amazing project. So stay tuned for that. I'll be posting things on my Facebook and YouTube, as well as on my website to announce when Rise takes off. And it's going to be an amazing support mechanism for people that feel isolated in all of this information.
That sounds like a fantastic project. I will definitely be keeping my eyes out for that. And your website is liquidmirror.org, correct?
Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to take a short break, and we will come back in the members section. And I would urge you guys, if you're listening on iTunes or YouTube or any of those other media outlets, to pop on over to www.the100thmonkeyradio.com and check out all the second hour stuff. So, condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny is the pain you carry.
And we'll talk to you in the second hour.
And me and the universe agree we got it right this time around. And if I never find a heaven, I don't mind while I have you. No better a heaven could ever be found. Hey, whoa, coming to me on the wings of a dream. Hey, whoa, somehow we knew, we believed it could be. Hey, whoa, you and me on the wings of a dream, and I say,